Gaining weight could be a sign of undereating. Yes, I'm serious. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. If your body isn't getting enough nutrition, it's going to start holding on to weight. It's going to start lowering your metabolism. The body's going to be thinking it's in starvation mode instead of feeling safe and secure enough to reach excess weight, to release excess weight. This is powerful, true, and critical to understand. Hello, friends. It's the Carnivore Rabbi here, as always, to meet, pray, and love together. How many times have you had a big meal and then said, I'm totally full, but then the waiter comes along and says, hey, look what we have for dessert. Now, this is pre-carnivore days I'm talking about. And then suddenly you see this dessert and suddenly you've got room for dessert. Unless you've been carnivore for a long time, you can probably remember this happening to you dozens, if not hundreds of times, maybe thousands. I don't think I'm the only one who has had this happen. And that's because the standard American diet distorts our satiety signals. We never know if we are really satiated because of the way carbs work. The carbs we consumed initiate an insulin response, which triggers desire for more. And especially if we are addicted to carbs, which many of us are, we don't know when we're full. It happens, I see it in my youngest children. We can always eat a little more, especially since processed food is engineered to want us to keep eating more. That, by the way, is why most cows are grain-fed, even if they're primarily grass-fed, because eating grains, carbs, gets them to eat more and fattens them up. And we like fatty meat, fatty steak. So grain-fed at the end promotes the fattiest animal. And human beings, we are animals. The same truth works for us. Carbs promote more food consumptions. So then we become carnivores. And you get through the beginning, the keto flu, and you just start eating meat and fat. And suddenly you feel satiated. It's a wonderful feeling. You feel full. So you stop eating. Have a meal, you stop eating. That's good, right? That's the way to lose weight. If that's what you're going for, eat a little less, fewer calories. But here's the problem. Almost 100% of us tend to undereat when we start the carnivore diet. I know this sounds crazy, but it's true. We don't eat enough fatty meat. We undereat. That's the biggest danger. But then you can say, okay, but what's the problem with that? We want to lose weight, want to get in better shape. Because if we undereat, we're going to feel hungry and we're going to get a craving. And then we're going to give in and have a carb snack. It's just inevitable. It happens to so many people. Or let's say it's not even a snack. We're going to have a side with our meat. I had dinner a few weeks ago with a guy who's been pretty good as a carnivore, not 100%, but he saw those mashed potatoes on the side. I told him not to order it. The steak we had wasn't enough. And he wanted that mashed potatoes. He wanted that spinach. And then you eat those carbs and they'll trigger eating more carbs. They trigger our addictive minds and then we'll consume more. Undereating on the carnivore diet is the greatest threat to success. So that begs the question, how will you know if you are undereating? I'm going to give you some sort of ideals later, but here are a few signs that you're undereating. 1, constipation. If you aren't eating enough food, there's no reason for your body to poop. If you find yourself chronically constipated, you will need to increase your food uptake. 2nd sign, fatigue. If you're constantly tired, that could be, not always, could be your body telling you that you're not getting enough nutrients. And you're going to be more likely to get back into eating carbs and get back into that addictive mode. 3rd sign, feeling cold. This is interesting. Heat is a byproduct of burning calories. If we're not taking enough calories, we're not going to be generating enough heat, and we'll want to conserve heat, and we'll just feel colder around us. Next, feeling down or depressed is true. If we're not eating enough, our body's going to start feeling run down, and that feeling in the body will eventually spread to the mind. Our mood is a good sign. Not always, because we could be stressed out. There are other things. My friend Chad, we just had a conversation yesterday. He talked about gaining weight even when he was eating the same after a good friend died. That stress and the cortisol response. But in general, if we're feeling pretty satiated, that's a good sign that we're getting the proper nutrition. Next, and this is going to surprise you, gaining weight could be a sign of undereating. Yes, I'm serious. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. If your body isn't getting enough nutrition, it's going to start holding on to weight. It's going to start lowering your metabolism. The body's going to be thinking it's in starvation mode instead of feeling safe and secure enough to reach excess weight, to release excess weight. This is powerful, true, and critical to understand. Next reason, hair loss. Hair loss is another symptom that happens when we just aren't consuming enough protein. Our diet's inadequate. Next, itchy and dry skin. Skin is one of the organs in the body that has rapid turnover. We're constantly renewing it. That's why wounds heal quickly. If we aren't eating enough, the process of regeneration will break down and our cells won't be nourished and our skin will start to look odd. Next, this is related to mental health, but it's separate. Trouble concentrating or remembering. If you aren't eating enough, your cognitive function will slow down and you may have trouble concentrating. I sometimes do if I'm doing a fast and towards the end of the first 24 hours, that can be a time when my cognitive function starts to decline. Now, if I'm doing a longer fast, which I don't do that many of, it actually revamps. But there are certain points in a fast where the mind is slowing down, and that's a sign of not eating enough. That's why I'm not a huge fan of fasting. Next, weakness in your muscles or joints. Again, if you're not getting adequate nutrition, your body's going to make up for it in other places. And often that place is your muscles. They'll start to decline. You'll feel weak. And if this happens over time, our muscles will begin to start wasting away. This is why some nutritionists don't like the carnivore diet, because they think it'll ruin your muscles. It's not true, not if you're eating adequately. But again, the biggest danger is undereating. That's tremendously important to remember, and it's counterintuitive, and it's the opposite of probably what most of us went through earlier. Try to avoid undereating. So, you know the risks. Now, what do? How do you avoid it? Dr. Ken Berry has a great saying. He says, eat until you are comfortably full. I like that. So don't go nuts. Get close to really nuts. Be comfortably full. I prefer not to measure the food I eat exactly. That's because my philosophy, I want to be close to nature, and I know our hunter-gatherers, they didn't measure their food. But if you are the measuring type, and there's nothing wrong with it, and of course this all depends on size, but maybe between 3/4 and a pound of meat at each meal if you do 2 meals a day, maybe a little more if you're a little bit bigger. According to Dr. Judy Cho, ideally you should be consuming about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein for every pound of ideal body weight, and then 75 to 80% fat. For example, if you weigh 150 pounds and that is your ideal body weight, then your protein should be between 120 and 150 grams per day and around 220 grams of fat to hit a 75% fat ratio. That's a lot of fat. That's hard for some people. That's why you got to eat really fatty meat and have butter. If you can tolerate butter, if not butter, then tallow. If this is hard, which for many people it is, Dr. Cho also recommends a few other things. Again, I didn't do any of these things, but I know people who have done them and they've helped. You can add whey or protein powder to meals to increase your protein intake. You can consider eating smaller meals more frequently throughout the day so you can better absorb nutrients. You can make egg custard to get more fat. Use heavy whipping cream and lots of egg yolks and even coconut milk if you want. Heavy cream is probably better, but that's another way of doing it. You can add raw egg yolks to everything. You can if you drink coffee, you can put egg yolks in your coffee. You can put egg yolks in hot water. You can make a shake with egg yolks and heavy whipping cream. And if you do use sweetener, like a keto sweetener, again, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you do, you could add raw egg yolks to that kind of smoothie you make. You could eat a lot of scrambled eggs or a lot of raw eggs if you're comfortable with egg yolks raw. Those are full of fat. I believe an egg yolk is 80% fat. So egg yolks are a great source. You can eat raw butter, or it doesn't have to be raw butter. It could be regular butter, Kerrygold butter. That's pure fat, if you can tolerate it. Last thing, you can take zinc. Low zinc has been shown to be a cause of poor appetite. If you want, you can try supplementing with zinc. Again, I didn't do any of these things except raw egg yolks I have and have had frequently. The point is, do not undereat. It's very hard to overeat on the carnivore diet. And again, I know that's surprising and a little unbelievable because we're so used to overeating being a problem. But it's not when you're a carnivore. The body signals you literally cannot eat anymore. Today, I do one meal a day, most of the time. I've been varying now. Sometimes on weekends, I'll have 2 meals. But even I generally feel best with 1 meal a day. And I push myself to eat a little more than I'm comfortably able because I know I still get temptations. My wife and kids are not carnivore. My wife's closer, but my kids, I was too late getting them. Now they're teenagers and they do their own. I could get them to be carnivore if I told them not to be. They want to do the opposite of what I suggest. So there's junk food around. And so I see it. I see Fruity Pebbles. So I need to feel full so that I'm not tempted. I don't feel cravings. And the truth is, the peace I get throughout the day with 1 meal a day is tremendous. Perhaps the greatest peace comes from not really thinking about food very much. I had my meal of the day. I'm totally nourished. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just enjoying life. Imagine that feeling, that you're just going through life and enjoying and soaking up every moment. You're not worried about what you're going to eat next. You're not worried about your next meal. You've satisfied your basic nutritional needs, and now you can savor every moment of life. That's the ultimate goal. That's where we can get if we stay committed to the carnivore diet.